Hi everyone, Lisa Gifford here, and welcome to our next installment for our Sew and Show box. And this is our November 2025, and I have it right here. So we're going to open it up and we're going to see what we have inside for the month of November. Y'all ready? All right, here we go. I'm going to pull everything out. So what do we got? So we've got a pattern, and it is just a sliver, and we'll be making the table runner. And this is a pattern by Christine Poor by Poor House Quilt Designs. So I've got everything in here to make the table runner. It also has instructions in here to make the placemats, but we'll be focusing on the table runner today. And we're going to be doing this in shades of blue. So here's our pattern. You have templates in here. So we've got the templates for the A and the B, and B left, B right. So we got all the templates that you need to make the table runner. And here is our gorgeous fabrics that we have in here. Now this fabric is from, I believe it is Northcott. Let me get the little flyer that I have on this one. So this is a fabric that is by Northcott. The fabric line is called Delph Dynasty, and we're doing it in the shades of blue. So we've got the beautiful blue print here. We've got a dark and a medium, and then the fabrics that I have to go with this, our accent fabrics, are, let's see, I got Northcott Colorworks Solid, this one here, the darker one. This is called Morning Hours. And the lighter cotton fabric is a Kona fabric. It's Kona cotton. This one, the color is Candy Blue. And then we have our white. This is also from Northcott. This is their Colorworks line of just their basic palette of white. This is their white. So we have a fat quarter of all of these. Of the four main fabrics, we got the two accents and the two focal fabrics and the accents. Then we have this fabric right here. I believe we have a half a yard of this, and this is for our from the same line. This is also from the Northcott. This is the Colorworks. This is the Morning Hours. This is being used for our binding. And then we have our batting, and we also have a backing. Let me grab the backing. And then you got the fabric that you need for our backing. So everything is in the kit to be able to make the full table runner. You got your backing, the batting, you got your main background fabric, and then the four colors for the quilt top and our binding. So everything is here, including the template and the pattern. So I actually have one made, so let me grab this one. I'm going to show you how pretty this is. And this is our table runner that we're going to be making. Now the table runner size of the table runner is, let me get that, it is 18.5 by 54 and a quarter. So it's a nice size table runner. And what we're doing is this called the pattern called just a sliver, but this is really a kaleidoscope block. And it just looks so pretty with the shades of blue and white. And I chose this colorway, me and Colby chose this colorway because we thought this would be a great one that you could use every day. But with the winter season, this kind of has that wintry feel to me on it with the beautiful print here in the blues and whites. That you could utilize this for, just for any time of the year, but I just thought it looked like a really great table runner for the winter season. So I'm thinking, after Christmas, you might want to pull this out and have this in January and February. It's just gorgeous, and I really had fun putting this together. It goes together quite quickly, and then I've done it in two different ways of quilting. So like this one here, I just did shadow quilting on it, where I just sewed every bit of the stitching on here, and I just did a 1/4 inch away from the main seam line. So it just really had a real pretty design to it. And then here's showing all that sewing on the back. It was super easy to do. Now there's enough fabric in here for your binding to do. I think she has you doing a 2.5, but I think I did a 3 inch, so you have enough materials if you want to have a wider binding. So here it is where I did the shadow quilting on it. And then this one here, I did but I did the exact same thing, but I did it in like a meander or a stipple type of a quilting. So it's just really just kind of just lazy meandering around on this one. So it just kind of gives it two different looks. So I also wanted to show you a sample of the placemat, and here is my little sample of the placemat. We don't have the templates in here. There's actually smaller than the template that's in here, but I have made some placemats, and I don't have them with me, where they were made with the exact same size templates as the actual project that we have in here. But in the pattern, it has everything in here. All the instructions are in here, plus the layout of the templates in here. These match up perfectly. If you want to use these, this is the layout for the templates for to making the placemat. But we're focusing mainly on these larger templates, and they're all right here, perfect. So every time you cut, they're going to come out just the way you need for it to do. All right, so let's take a look at the actual blocks to put this project together. There are 5 blocks that you are making, but when you think about the 5 blocks that we're doing, 2 of them are the exact same thing, just in different colorways. And I actually have them all right here in front of me to show you the blocks that we'll be making. So it's actually 3 blocks, but there's 5 total, but 2 of them are in, just different colorways in putting them together. So I've got this one here. This is one of the first blocks that you'll be making. So it's a simple kaleidoscope block. How cool is that? So you'll be making this in this colorway, and I believe this is with the lighter fabric. And then you're having to have the second one right here in the light, with the dark fabrics in the light. So that is the one. They're exact same block, done in different colorways. So I'm going to be showing you how to construct those. And then this is the second block that you'll be making. So they're exact same thing, just done a little bit different, but in 2 different colorways. So we'll be making these today. And then the third block is the cornerstones, and that is this block that we'll be making today. So we're going to put all of this together. So let's go ahead and get started on what we need to do to get everything going. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is, when you get all your fabrics out, give them a really good press. You've got a lot of bias seams, so you might want to put a little starch on your fabric, but give them a really good press. And some of the tools that you're going to need, that you're going to find yourself useful for this one, of course, it's going to be some clips, some scissors, some pins, coordinating threads. You're going to need a little bit of basting spray to sandwich it all together. That's what I used, or you could use the pins to do your sandwiching, but I just used the basting spray. And this is a great project that can be done in an afternoon. You could easily chain piece a lot of this through to get it done, and it was just fun. So the main thing was to just be sure to get your fabrics picked out, or what you're going to do as for how you're going to do your colorway. So on my pattern, if you open it up, it has you naming in the pattern the focus 1 and 2 and accent 1 and 2. So when I'm looking at my fabrics that's in here, the fabric for the focus 1 and 2, that is going to be the prints. So focus 1 and 2, you've got to decide which one you want them to be. So when I'm looking at this, I see this darker brown, that's going to be my darker blue. So I'm calling this one focus number, if I'm taking a look at it correctly, I believe it's focus number, the darker one is focus 2, the lighter one is focus 1. So kind of remember that, because you're going to need to, in the amounts that you're cutting, you're going to need to know that focus 1 and focus 2. And then for the accent fabrics, accent 1, accent 2, I chose accent 1 is the darker one. Accent 1, I believe, is my darker fabric, and accent 2 is my lighter blue. So that's how I labeled them for me, because I wanted my dark to be the 3 blocks here, and then my light to be the 2, and then they're going to be on the cornerstones and the difference. So kind of pay attention to that. That's the most confusing part, was making sure that I had them labeled, and I kept that throughout. I think when I very first did this, I cut way too many of one and not enough of another. So pay attention to how you got them labeled so that you'll be able to get all of your cutting done right. So once you get everything all pressed and nice and flat, then you're going to do your cutting. If you look at the instructions, it has pretty much exact same cutting for the focus 1 and 2 and accent 1 and 2. It's just the difference in the amounts is going to be with using your templates here. And they have them labeled as A, B, and C. C is going to be squares. So they're all, if I'm not mistaken, all the squares are C's and they're 4-inch squares. So if you have a 4-inch template or just use your mat and rulers to cut your 4-inch squares, you're going to be cutting those because the squares all get cut on the diagonal because that becomes the pieces for the corners. That's these pieces right here. Once the squares are cut, then you're cutting them corner to corner, and that's what your letter C is going to be. And the templates are actually labeled A and B, and you have your left and your right, and that's going to be important because you'll be cutting out left of one color but right of another. So you'll be running into that in a little bit later. All right, so the first thing that you're going to do is once you have your fabrics cut, go ahead and cut your focal fabrics. That would be the 2 prints. And you're just cutting off of these 5-inch strips. So you need 3 5-inch strips, and those are going to be labeled, cut with the letter A. And then when you're going to your accent fabrics, which would be your solids, you're going to be cutting 1 5-inch strip and then 1 4-inch strip from both of these. And then it has you to subcut them. You don't have to do any subcutting on these. So because once you have them cut, you have the templates that you'll be able to utilize for all of your cutting. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple of pieces right here. I'm going to show you how easy it is. So here is my, I'm going to cut one with the 5, I'm going to cut one at the, now the 4-inch ones are used for those squares. So I'll cut a 5. So the accent is going to be cut in, taking a look, you do use them here and here. So I'm going to cut a 5-inch strip from one and a 4-inch strip to show you how easy it is. I got my 5-inch ruler here. I'm going to grab both my fabrics here. I'm going to cut my 5 inches. These are folded, so it got the creases in it, but we're just going to go ahead and get our cuts done. And you do not have to subcut these down because you got your templates to do all of your cutting for you. So we're going to cut our 5-inch strip, and then we're going to cut a 4-inch strip. Now, of the accent, you're only going to be cutting 1 5-inch, and then you're going to cut 1 4-inch of both the accents. And again, of the focal fabrics, you're going to be cutting just 5-inch strips. So let's go ahead and get our 5s done. And I don't think I have enough of the light blue to get a 4-inch strip. Let me see. No, let me see if I have enough of this one. I can get a 4-inch of this one. But the 4-inch is just square, so I'm not going to worry about the 4 inches. We're going to just focus on the 5 inches here. So here's my fabrics for the 5 inches in the accents, and I am going to take one of my prints here, and we'll cut our 5-inch off of it. So I've got my light one here, and I believe this is accent 1 or focus 1. I'm going to cut a 5-inch strip from this one. Again, you would be cutting 3 of both of the focal fabrics. And then you utilize these, you follow, after you get all of your cutting, then it's going to go into subcutting. But you do not need to subcut into the 5 by 4-inch squares that it tells us to do with the accent fabrics. So here's my 5-inch with the accent fabric. So once you have everything cut here, Then you're going to go into the next page because then it talks into the shape cutting. And that's where our templates come into play. So all of our 5-inch strips are utilizing this piece right here, our large A runner piece. And you're going to be following along what it tells us to do. So it has the 2 subheadings. You've got one that says runner and one that says placemat. So we're only focusing on the one that says runner. So it's telling us that we need to cut 20 triangles from our focal fabrics. So you're going to just literally just take your template and you're going to lay it on your fabrics, and you're going to be seeing that it'll fit perfectly onto here. So I'm being careful not to cut into my selvage here, so I'm moving it over just enough. And when I lay it onto the fabric, it fits perfectly on here. So all you're going to be doing is you're going to be doing your cut, rotate around, you can get your other side cut. And then you're going to just take the template and you're just going to flip it over, lining it up on the top and bottom. And then continue cutting, going all the way across, and continue cutting till you have all 20 pieces done. I think you'll have just a little bit left over of the fabrics once you have all of those cut. So you're going to do that for all of your, for the main focal fabrics, that is the print. You're going to get 20 of these triangles done. Now then you're going into the accent fabrics. So here's my 5-inch accent fabric. And it's telling us that we have to do accent 1. I need to have 8 BLs, and this one actually says BL. And then you have to have 8. So of the darker one, which the dark is my dark blue, so you'll notice it says 8 BLs, and then you're going to have 12 Cs. Well, that's where you would have your 4-inch square. So that would have been from your 4-inch strip. So here's, if this is my 4-inch strip, then I would be cutting these into 4-inch squares, and then they get cut on the diagonal. And you'll see that further down in the instructions right here. So what you're needing here, though, off of the ones that were the 5 inches, is where you're going to be cutting your 8B left. So the green, which is in my pattern, I'm using the dark blue, which is the green accent 1, the accent 1. So again, you're just, instead of having to subcut it into all of those 5 by 4 inch rectangles, you just keep your strips. So we don't have to do an extra step. So we're just going to have our template on here, and then we're just going to go ahead and cut out all of our pieces. And it's going to be the same thing as we did for the A. You're just going to be going back and forth, lining it up, and then cutting out all of your pieces until you have all 8 of them done. So you'll have 8 of accent 1 of the BLs, and then you'll have, going into accent 2, you'll have 8 of the BRs. And then both of them will have the, I believe you're cutting 6 squares, and then you're cutting them onto the fold. Let me get that correct on here. It's been a minute. Let's see, you do 12 squares. So you have your 12 squares, and then you cut them on the diagonal so that you'll have a total, I believe, like 24 total. So you'll get all of your squares and all of your pieces all cut, and then be sure to have them labeled. And it just goes into all the instructions on cutting all of your triangles here, cutting A, triangles A, cutting BLs and BR triangles, and then cutting all of your squares into half on the diagonal. And then you'll have it done with the white fabric. You'll have that done, which is, they call it the background, and you'll have it done in your 2 accents. Because you do not need to cut any squares with the main focal fabrics at all. So once you have all of your components all cut and all labeled, and then it's just a matter of, okay, now we're going to start putting everything together, assembling everything on to making all of our blocks. So the first block, if you take, now we're going on to page 3, where it has right here the table runner. Take a look at that, because you're going to be making 2 of the one with the lighter fabric, which is going to be this one. And you'll notice you'll have your white pieces here, and then you'll have your, which is the background, the triangle, the big triangles that you've done from template A, and then you have your template A pieces for your, to finish out the kaleidoscope, and then the squares that you'd cut in half, these are going to be used for these corner pieces right here. So you'll be making 2 of this block, and then you'll be making 3 of this block. So it's pretty much the exact same thing. Now, one of the things they talk about on doing these is you sew them in pairs. To make these, you sew these in pairs, and you're pressing everything in the same direction. So if I flip this over and you see everything got pressed in the same direction, so that when you go to put this all together, I'm going to show you how easy it is to just kind of spin this, and it will lay nice and flat by having everything pressed together. I tried doing it different, like if I was to press my seams open or tried to have the seams nest a different way. It did not work. This worked out the best way. Everything laid nice and flat by having everything pressed in the same direction, so it just kind of spins. So I love that. I love how well everything laid nice and flat. And they talk about it here into figure 2B and 2C, how you put everything together and make it spin. So let's go ahead and let's put together these 2 blocks right here, and I'll show you how easy it is to put them together. I got half of them done on here, and I think I have half done on this one right here. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how easy it is to put these all together, and everything is on the 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then we'll press it, and then we'll add our triangles on the corners so that it turns out nice and makes it square. All right, so let's go over here, and I have everything. I did this in white for this one. I tried. I didn't like it in a different color or grays. I think I just kept everything in white. And I even was going to quilt it in a different color, and I still just stuck with the white. I think it just looks better. All right, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to get your pieces, and when you're going to sew these together, if you have the white on top or if you're going to put the blue on top, the print on top, whatever you do, just be consistent on all of it. So I found it was easier for me to have the print on top, right sides together, and so I always kept it consistent throughout the whole thing of when sewing it. So you're just going to, it's going to just match up perfectly, and you're going to sew 1/4 inch down the one seam. So this is where you could do them in pairs. I already have it one done, but it was just so easy to just sew this straight perfectly 1/4 inch all the way down to the end. Try not to veer off at all. Just make sure you follow it all the way down. Get my little leader here, and we're going to go 1/4 inch perfectly all the way down. So when I was started, so my very first one, I just pressed to the dark, but it doesn't really matter because you're pressing everything in the same direction, so you're pressing to the light eventually. So to get started, I got all of my pieces all sewed in pairs. Now you could go to the iron and you could press it, or you could give yourself a finger press, because now you're going to take the 2 that you sewed, and now you're going to make the half of the circle, half of the kaleidoscope. So you're going to put the 2 together, 2 of the pairs together, and just like this, and you're going to do the exact same thing. So when you sew this down, be sure to keep your 1/4 inch all the way down to the end. You'll be crossing over your stitches right here at the very bottom. But it all works out, you'll see. Let me show you how nice this looks when you get it sewed up. Again, this is a great project to do a lot of your chain piecing. You just got to remember where what goes. And you'll notice that your seam will nest right here at these two intersections right here. So you'll kind of will feel it. It'll be nice and flat here on the bottom. Stitch right on off at the 1/4 inch. So when you open it up, now you've got this great seam allowance right here. And again, you're pressing all in the same direction. So we pressed to the dark side, but now we're going to be pressing right here at this white. So I'm going to go to the iron and we're going to give this a final press right here, because then you'll be putting all these together. So then when you have the two pairs sewed together, then you'll be sewing those together. So give it a starter and go ahead and set the seam and then press it back. Do not do a lot of pushing on this one. There's a lot of bias right here. And if you haven't cleaned your iron in a while, be sure you have a very clean iron, because you are working with white. Now, I'm not sure if this is a fabric that will bleed, so if you might want to pre-wash it. I'm not sure. I didn't get a chance to test it. I was kind of concerned about the darkness of the backing fabric. So be sure when you go to wash your fabrics or your project all together, be sure to have some of those color catchers on here. But you're going to get this all nice and flat. And then we're going to take the two pieces and we'll be sewing these together. So you'll see all the seams are all pressed in the same direction. So we're going to press these two together. And again, you've got this nice seam allowance right here. So we're wanting to match this up here at the center and stitch right here at that 1/4 inch so we don't lose any of our points. So this one here is the one with the dark focal fabric. I've got the lighter fabric right here. So we're just going to line it up. Now you could go ahead and pin this or clip it to hold it into place. And then just sew a 1/4 inch all the way down. Matching up my seams right here. I don't think the seams nest so much. I'm going to get a clip. I'm going to clip that right there in that center. So I want that to not shift. It kind of nests just a little bit right there. Clip came undone. Keep them right at that 1/4 inch. It's a little bit of thickness right there. I'm going to repeat that for this one here too. Same thing, nice 1/4 inch seam allowance right here. Going to put these together, kind of nest it up. And stitch it down. Right where I need for it to be. Open it up, we're going to take a look. Look how pretty that is. All of my points are right where I need for them to be. Let's go over to the ironing station. Let's go ahead and get this iron. I'm going to show you how cool it is to do this little spin on this one. So these are the ones that you're going to be doing, your large blocks. and everything is going in the same direction. So you're taking a look at the direction that everything is kind of laying out. So what I do is I kind of roll it back right here, and I'm going to finger press it here, and then the other side, flip it over and finger press that one so it spins. So they're both going in the opposite direction here, this way and this way, to continue on with the spin. So here, right here, you see it spinning. So I find that if I just kind of twist this a little bit, just kind of right here in the center, and it's just going to follow itself around in this spin, and it will lay nice and flat. So we're going to follow this going around, give it a little heat here. You'll see it starting to spin right here, and I just kind of set the iron on here and just give it a little pressure, and it just flattens right down. How pretty is that? I can put a little steam on that, and then I'm going to set this underneath the block press. And then here's the second one. Taking a look at the direction of everything spinning. So you're going to do the one side, I kind of finger press it right here, flip it over, and then finger press the other side. So everything just spins, and it'll be real nice and flat. Real pretty there in the center. Everything came together just the way I wanted. So you're following the seams. Just kind of giving this a little twist. It's kind of popping it, I think, a little bit, and it'll just flatten down. Put a little steam on it. And set this under the press. So you're going to do that to all of your big blocks. And it just turns out so nice. So now we're just going to take our squares that we had, our 4-inch squares that we had cut on the diagonal, and we're going to add them to the appropriate place so this turns this around into a square for us. And it'll be, then we got to trim it down to the 9.5 inches. So I've got a really cute trick for this and how well it works on this. Putting all these together. Let me get my 2 pieces that are my completed blocks. So the darker one, which is the focal fabric 2, I believe, is the white. So you're going to be putting the white squares on all of the blue here, and then you're going to be putting these pieces onto the white here, but in opposite corners. So light blues on opposite, dark blues on the other side. So we'll get those on here. So, but here's what you need to do. We got to find our centers on all the pieces that we're going to be adding these pieces to. So what I have found is I will just take my block and I will fold it up and match up the seams. So we're putting them onto the white onto the blue. So I'll fold this in half. I kind of can nest these seams right here as I fold it up, and I match up the top edges, and I'm giving it a little bit of a finger press right here. So there's my center, and I'm going to go ahead and do that for all 4 of them. So kind of lining up the seams and lining up the edge and finger pressing right there at that center. So you can see my little crease, or you could take this to the iron if you want to do it there. But I found this worked really well. So just giving it a good finger press right here at the center on all 4 of them. Finger press right here. There's my centers. Now with your triangles of your squares that you had cut in half, you're going to fold them in half. And I don't think there's a right or wrong on this white. I couldn't tell the difference between right side or wrong side. So I just fold it in half also, and I give it also a crease right here. So then I just set the crease of the triangle in, resting it into the crease of the blue square or the blue triangle that we're going to be sewing this on. And this is larger, so it's going to, once you have it laid onto here, it's going to extend out on both sides. And you're going to start here and you're going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way down. So you're going to do this to all 4 of the sides. And I kind of chain piece these also. So I've got it nested in here, and I'm just going to sew a 1/4 inch and then just come right on off. I do not cut my threads. I take my next one, my next white triangle, press it, get my center, and then I'm just going to lay it on here, matching it into the previous crease. And then I just bring this up to my machine and I just start stitching it down. So I don't even cut the threads, I just keep it all together. And I spin it all the way around. Fold this one again to the next one. Give it a little bit of a turn, set this crease into the crease in the fabric, onto the accent, or the focus fabric, and then we're just going to go ahead and stitch this down. And then the last one, same thing. Folding it, matching up the edges, point to point, finding my center on the long edge. Setting it in here and stitching it down. Then I'll cut my threads. Then I just snip in between my little trails. And that one's done. Let's go ahead and get our other one finished. Now these get sewn onto the white in opposite directions. So the same thing, you got to fold these in half and find your center. So just do that on all of them. So you're making 2 of the lighter blocks. That's the ones that have the white, the light background, the light accent, and then you're making 3 of the dark focal fabric ones. Now the light ones gets the accent colors, the 2 shades of blue onto them. But it's again, it's the exact same block we just did, we're just doing it in a different colorway. You're making a total of 5 blocks, 3 darker ones and 3 lighter, and 2 lighter ones. Right, so just after I have all 4 of those done, same thing, you're going to fold up your triangles onto the long edge here, fold this up and put a crease in it. And you're going to place this on, and then you're going to do dark, light, so that you can have the opposites. Laid it in. last one. And then snip those threads. Now we're going to take this back to the ironing station and we're going to press these all back. Again, lots of bias going on right here. So I kind of like to just kind of roll them back and maybe give them a little bit of a finger press. Let's go ahead and set our seams first on both of them. And then just gently roll it back. Give it a little finger press. And then press it down. We don't want to distort. Just laying it, just adding some heat. Just roll it back, little finger press, and then press it. There is just so much bias right here. This would be really easy to, well, there's not bias on this piece, but there's bias on the triangle here. You don't want to distort it. And I have all those done, so I'm going to lay these underneath the press. And then the last one. Once we have this done, then we're going to trim these down. So these get trimmed to 9.5 inches square. And let's set this one under the press. So it's probably should be about 9.5 inches that you're going to see from edge to edge. So we're basically just getting all this excess material removed from the triangles that we just put on the edges here. So we're going to go over to the cutting table and let's get these all trimmed down to our 9.5 inch squares. And then we'll get started on the remainder blocks that we need to do, which is the side pieces and our 4 cornerstones. So I'm going to lay this out and I'm looking from edge to edge, where am I at? And I'm just right there at the 9.5 inches. Might have just a little bit to trim off. So I start on one side. Now I'm looking to make sure everything is straight. And we're just going to be trimming off just a little bit. We don't want to lose any of our seam allowance here on our edges. So if I take my first cut, trimming it down, looking still right here, I've got plenty of seam allowance right here. So then once I have one side straight, I'm going to line this up on the other side. I was thinking about trying it with the 9.5 inch block, and I think this one was too easy to cut it too short to lose your seam allowances. So I found this was the better way to get this to our 9.5 inches, because it's just a little bit you're taking off. Mainly it's just the edges of the triangles that you just sewed on that you're going to be, the extra that you're going to literally be having coming off right here, and still have my seam allowances. Got 2 done, so now we're going to flip it and line it up. And I'm just using my mat to line everything nice and straight here. This is right on the line. And then last side. literally just a little bit. And so you have your blocks done. So you're going to do that to all 5 of your blocks for the table runner. So let's go ahead and get this last one here. I like to do opposite sides. When I do one, then I'll flip it over. I don't just rotate it around. I flip it over to the opposite side. Just a little bit coming off. I love the kaleidoscope block. This would be a fun block project that you could do in so many different colorways. You see on the pattern, I think they did it in a Christmas. I've already made one in a rainbow fabrics. It was a lot of fun. I really love these shades of blue in this one. There, all four sides are done. So you're going to get done for all of them. You have 2 of them with the color on the edges, and then 3 of them, the darker, with the light. So you have all those blocks done. So then now we're going to go ahead and construct the side pieces. These are going to be going on the sides. So you have, I believe, 8 that you'll make of this colorway, where it's the light accent, I believe that's accent 1, and then you'll have the pieces that you'll be doing, that was your squares, and then your left and right of the colors of the accent that you'll have here, left and right of the template B, and then you'll be making this one. So I believe you make, let's take a look at that, how many you make of this one. So you're going on to now to page 4. So of the table runner, you're making 8 of this one right here, and you're making 4 of this one right here. And I believe I have all of these done. So now the process for this one is a little bit different. Now remember, on this one, when we go to sew all these together, we're pressing everything into the same direction, and it creates this nice little spin. The pressing on these blocks are different. If you'll notice here on figure 3B, you're sewing you have your middle piece and you have your 2 side triangles, but these get pressed from the center out, and the whole block is done that way. So even when you put your half pieces on right here, which is template B here, they are also getting pressed away from the center. So you'll see it here. Here's my center block, and it's pressed away, and then when you add these 2 pieces, they're pressed away, and then when you add the 2 top pieces, they get also pressed away. So everything gets pressed away from the center on doing this one. So let's get the components to show you how we're doing this one. So here's this one we're going to be making, this one right here. So you have your main focal fabric. This one is fabric focal fabric 1, and then you have your background. So you're going to be sewing these 3 pieces together, and then you're going to have your BR and your BL here and here, and then whatever this one is, the opposite for the exact same color is on the opposite corner, just like this one, opposite corner. So this is the construction of this block. You can't work it out from left to right. You start from the center and you work out on this one. So when I go to sew this together, I'm putting these 2 together first, pressing it away, and then you're going to add your other white piece, press it away. And then when you go to sew the bottom accent pieces to it, you're going to start with the one that's going to be on your left, and then you'll do the one that's on your right. So that all lays out right for when we got to trim all of this down, because this block gets trimmed down to I believe 5 by 9.5, 5 inches by 9.5. And you have to really pay attention to the orientation of when you're sewing all these together, so that you will have your 1/4 inch seam allowance here on these pieces right here, because these are all running along the edge right here. So this is where there's no border on this quilt. It's all binding that's going to be caught up into here. All right, so let's go, and we will go to put this together. Show you how easy it is to put this block together. And this one is, again, you're making 8 of the ones with this color, and then you're making 4 with the darker fabric with the white. 4 of these, 8 of these. So I'm going to show you these exact same procedure for doing them both. It's just in the colorway. Except I really wanted you to see how this one is done, because the pressing is different. You're not pressing in the circle all in the same direction. Everything gets pressed out from the center. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and lay it out, all of my pieces. White, white in the center. So taking my 2, I'm going to place the print on top of the white, lining up all of my edges. Everything should match up perfectly. We cut with the template, and then we're just going to sew 1/4 inch all the way down. Get a little leader here. No stretching or pulling. There's a lot of bias right here. Now you could chain piece all of these, absolutely. All right, so knowing that this is the center, we're pressing it away. So I'm just going to finger press it, particularly focusing, getting it nice and pressed down here. Now you can go to the iron and press them all. I'm just finger pressing here. Now we're going to take our other white, and we're going to place it on this side. So I'm just going to line it up and sew 1/4 inch all the way down. You'll be crossing over a little bit onto the piece you just sewed in. See how it kind of comes off onto the piece that you just stitched, but that's okay. We're just now going to give it a finger press. I'm not going to distort it, just give it a finger press right here. So now we go to attach these 2 pieces right here. Start with the one that's on your left. I place it on here like this, but I'm flipping it over to stitch it down. Quarter inch even coming off the edge. Just following it all the way down. Now we're going to roll this back. So we're going to finger press this back. Now this gets trimmed away, so I'm just giving it a finger press here. Now we're going to get our other piece, and we're going to lay this on and stitch this one down. And when you go to stitch it, you're going to be coming off right here a little bit onto this blue that you had just sewed down. But this is getting trimmed up a little bit, so you'll see it all works out. Lining up all of my edges and 1/4 inch all the way down. See how it came off the little bit of that blue right there? So when we go to roll this back, this gets trimmed because it's wider than 5 inches. So you're going to be trimming it a little bit right here, but it will all work out because you're still going to see there your 1/4 inch is going to be right there. So I'm going to give just a little bit of a finger press. Now we're going to add our 2 pieces of our squares cut into triangles, cut in half. And they're going to be on the opposite side of the fabric that you have just placed on here, your BL and your BRs. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to fold this in half. And we're going to find our center of the pieces that they're going on, which is, in this one, it's the white. And you're going to find the centers on both of them. So kind of nesting up the seams, lining up the top edge, and give it a finger press to find your centers here. And the same thing for these pieces right here. Fold them in half like we had done previously. Mark your center. And then you're going to place this long edge and place the 2 creases kind of nesting into each other. And then stitching all the way across. Now looking, it's the opposite side, so this is the darker one, goes here. And just stitching all the way across. It will be bigger. Let's get the second one sewed on. Put my little crease in it. Lay it in. And stitch across. Clip your threads, and now let's go ahead and get this pressed back. We're going to set those seams and just gently roll it back. And this one. So everything we had finger pressed. So I'm going to flip it over. And you can see all the seams are being pressed away on this one. No spinning on this one. Pressing all those seams away. And set this under the block, and you're going to do that to all 8 of those and all 4 of the other. And now we go trim them down. These get trimmed down to 5 by 9.5. So I like to start with the 5 inch on this one. And the 5 inch is going to be from this, from here to here, not the long. So we're going to do our 5 inch. So I spin this around because I know that this is a straight edge right here on this triangle. So this is what I'm setting right up there against my edge here. And looking at my 5 inches is going to be right here. So I'm real close right here, a little bit maybe there, but I've got a little bit that's coming off right here. But I have a little bit more than 1/4 inch here to work with. So don't really want to shave off much. It's just a little bit that's coming off. I'm bringing this over. So it's just this tiny bit in the middle. So let's smooth that out just a little bit. Just a sliver coming off. But now it's nice and straight, and you still have your seam allowance right here. There's a thread. Okay, so now we're going to flip it over. Line up that straight edge that you had just made. And it's right here is where it's pretty much at the top of this block. So you're just going to be lining up your ruler along the top of that block, and you're going to be just trimming off just a little bit of the excess of the triangles that you just stitched on. And you still got your plenty of seam allowance. I think I need to come off a little bit more on that one. Make sure, double check. Yep, that one needs to come off a little bit more. Right here. So now you have your 5 inches. Now we're going to our 9.5. Lining up my edges here, along the bottom, along the top. And it's just a little bit that's going to be coming off right here and here. This is a 9.5 inch block, having it centered. So the point will be at 4 3/4 here. Still have a good bit there. Point is lining up at the 4 3/4. And a little bit here. And still have your good seam allowances here and here. So you'll have 8 of these and 4 of these to do. So set those aside, which leaves us to the very last block that we have to do. So let me grab my instructions. So that was going to, now we are on to our corner blocks. So you're making 4 of these corner blocks, and that's this one right here. So these go in the 4 corners. This fabric is the fabric 1. I believe it's the lighter. It's focus 1. It's the lighter of the block of the fabrics. So you're just literally just putting white all the way around this piece right here. So here's where you're going to have the you'll have your 12-inch squares. Again, you'll have some left over for your triangle, your squares that you cut right here in half. And then you got your left and right of your white pieces here, your BL and BR. So we're just going to go ahead and put all of this together to create this block. And again, you have to have 4 of these. And I've taken a look. I believe everything is pressed out on this one. It's all pressed out from the center. So let's go over to the sewing machine and let's get this one done. This one goes pretty quickly. So I believe that is our layout right here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm having my center, placing the accent fabric onto the focal fabric onto the white edge here, lining up all of my edges, and then we just stitch it down, finger press it, and then we'll stitch the other side. So we're pressing it out, so I'm going to press it away from the center. Just finger pressing this here, and then we're going to add this one right here. Lining up all of our edges, and just like we've done, you'll just sew that perfect quarter all the way down, all the way off to the edge. Give it a finger press. Focusing more on the top now, because now we got to find our center for this piece right here. So just like we done on the others, find our center for this, find our center for this, lay these on and get them sewed up. So I'm going to roll it over, matching up my edges, doing a finger press here to create my little center crease. And then on the long side, fold up the triangle, press it, create your little crease there. Then set these together and stitch across. Now we're going to go ahead and get this pressed. You'll do that 4 times. So let's press it and then we'll trim it down. I believe this is a 5-inch square. Let's set that seam, roll it back, and press it. I'm trying to follow the grains. Particularly of the white fabric. All right, let's set this under the block press for just a second, and then we're going to go back and we're going to get this trimmed down to, I believe it's 5 inches, but let's take a look at the instructions. I believe it's 5. And then will you do that again 4 times. So that's our 4 cornerstones. When we have those done, now we can just lay everything out. Okay, so let me lay this down. It is exactly a 5-inch square. So we're going to start on an edge here, I think. So I'm going by these angles on the fabrics that were the B fabrics. It seems to be pretty straight right here. I have a little bit we're going to be coming off this little edge. We don't want to lose any of our points on this one. So just a tiny bit there. I'm going to lay it up here, and I'm working on this one here, just a little bit that has to come off. Because all this gets sewed in. Right there. Still have my 1/4 inch right there. Now we're going to go ahead, now that we got these 2 edges nice and straight, we just got to knock off the excess of this piece here. And just a little bit right here. I'd rather have to take off a little bit more than take off too much at the beginning. Just a little bit right here. There we go. Repeat that 4 times and you have all of your corner pieces done. So here's all of our blocks. So now we get to go lay it out on the wall. And if you'll notice earlier today, I had most of it already laid out as I was putting everything together. So we'll finish, and we're going to go ahead and get this laid out. So you have your dark, light, dark, light, dark. So you did 3 of the darker ones, and those were the ones that had the white on the corners. So the next one would be the light. Hold on. I think they're not to match. Just trying to remember which direction it needs to be spinning. I see them as dark, light. Okay, not matchy, not matchy. All right, so the next one is the light with dark background. Goes here. So then you're laying your pieces here. And how I see this is I always have the middle piece pointing out. The middle one is pointing out, because it was easy to get it turned. You want it pointing away from the center. Then we have the dark one here. It's turned in the same direction as this one. And then the light one on the bottom. Then our edges pointing out here. And we've got one that goes here. Now this one goes on the very bottom. So we're creating this row right here on the very bottom. Don't know if you can see it here. So and it's also pointing out, so I'm going to lay it here, and then you have your two cornerstones pointing out, like I have here and here, going the same thing on the bottom here. Don't think you can see it, and here. So I'm going to get my finished one. Once you have it all laid out, then you're just going to be sewing it all in rows. So here is the one that is finished. Put a pin in there. So you sew this row, and then this row. This row, you just sew all of your rows together. And I believe once you have your rows sewn, I'm trying to think if she has us. Trying to remember when I sewed all of my rows together, I think that's when I started pressing my seams open for all the rows or you could have it do like left or right, press it in, press it out. Like these could press in, these press out, so that you can get everything all to nest up. And then once you have it all completed done, give it a good press, and then you go to put the whole thing together. So get your big backing piece, get it nice and iron, nice and flat, and then place it right side down. You're going to have to trim up your batting a little bit because I always like mine to be an inch smaller than my the backing, so I can see it. So then when I lay my final piece over top, so you're going to lay it on there, and I just used my basting spray just to get it all secure, and then quilt it, and then put your binding on. And again, this one was one of those that was super easy to quilt because I literally just started on the edges and I just followed every seam a 1/4 inch. So I used, trying to recall I don't even think I actually used anything except the edge of my foot to do a little shadowing of all of the stitching inside and outside. And I think it looked prettier than when I just did a stipple, but you could do whatever you want and then just put your binding on and you are all done. So this was a great project. Again, this is one of those ones, it looks more difficult than what it is, but by following the simple tricks that she had talked about, by impressing your seams, because a lot of people worry about the kaleidoscope block because sometimes you'll create that bubble in the middle and it's hard to get that out. But having all of those seams being pressed in the same direction, stop that, of course. And then can't say enough about our block presses. They make everything just all nice and flat. So this was, again, our sew and show for November. I absolutely loved this one. It was Colby who had, I fell in love with the pattern because I love a pretty kaleidoscope block. And Colby said, let's do it in blues and whites. So this was a line that literally just came out like last month. I mean, it just came out. And so I had pre-ordered this fabric for this, so I really had no idea what it was going to look like till it came in, and I was so pleased. Now, if I was to change anything, I think I would have made the accent fabric a little bit lighter. I think I would have liked to have had more of a contrast between the two fabrics of the accent, of the vocal fabric. But I think it's still just as pretty, the way it creates this circle spin. It was just absolutely fun, and I can't wait to see the ones that you make and try it in other colorways. I wish I would have had the other one. If I get it back over here, I'll show you the one that I had done in rainbow fabrics and pink and blues. It was really, really pretty. So I can't wait to see the ones that you've done. I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I have. If you have any questions, you can always reach me at learn@martellinotions.com. Be sure to post your pictures and put yourself in for a drawing. And just wait till you see what we got coming for the month of December. It's a good one, and I think you're going to love it. All right, everybody, have a fantastic day. Bye-bye, everybody.